Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Masters with Harshith Podcast. Today we have with us Naitik. Hi, Naitik.
Hello, man. How are you?
I'm good. So, Naitik and I first met last year in May in Pune. So, I had an admit from CMU where Naitik currently is. So, I had just gone to meet folks there and try to understand where I really. I think this was not even May. This is probably in April because at that point
Correct,
I still hadn't made a decision. So this is probably
correct.
first week of April or like towards the end of March. So okay, it's been a year. So
Yeah,
like
it's been a
Naitik and
long
I
time.
have like just been in touch through I think LinkedIn and things like that. And then when this thing came up, we texted and we exchanged numbers. So yeah, this is awesome. So hi Naitik, again, welcome to the episode, and it's so glad to talk with you again and have you here.
Thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm, I'm, I'm like the thing that you're doing right now. It's amazing. I think it's gonna help a lot of students coming in. So yeah, kudos to you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Naitik. So Naitik, why don't you talk about what program you're at Carnegie Mellon and like a bit of your experience, your prior experience, and what led you to Carnegie Mellon.
Got it. So I did my undergrad from BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus, and I got a dual degree there. I got my bachelor's in electrical and electronics alongside a MSc in economics. And through the course, I realized that the circuit branches weren't for me. But I did realize that finance is definitely for me. And I did not want to get into the core finance. I wanted to still be with tech. I enjoyed math. I really needed math in my work. So the perfect amalgamation and mixture of that was a quant job. And that's where I went after my undergrad. I was at Credit Suisse as a quant analyst. I worked in their quant stats team. I interned there for a year, worked full time for around 7, 8 months. And that's when I decided that I need more education to really thrive in this field. So then I started applying to financial engineering colleges, and I got into CMU, thankfully. And the course is called MS in Computational Finance. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome, awesome, Naitik. So I think this is a growing trend in India. That it's already been in the West, like financial engineering, computational finance, and stuff like that. But what exactly is computational finance? You mentioned quant, right? So what exactly is that? And someone who is doing a 4-year degree, how do they break into that?
Got it. So if I have to create almost like a Venn diagram for y'all, it would be finance, math, programming, and a lot of statistics and probability. If essentially
Interesting.
you want to work in a field which kind of incorporates all of these in a hefty amount, this is where a quant role comes in.
Got it.
You are essentially strategists for a money making company, and based on your concentration that you think you're stronger in, you can pivot in a quant role itself. Like if you think your programming and your development is stronger, you can shift to a quant development role. If you think that you are more hands-on, more quick with decisions, do well with pressure, and are very, very good with quick math, quant traders are probably your role. So it's a very niche field essentially because it requires a lot of skill set, a lot of math heavy stochastic calculus problems. But yeah, the broad structure is this, that if you want to be in an amalgamation of these four fields, that's where a quant comes.
Got it. That makes sense. So, Naitik, how does one get into it in the first place, right? So, you were
Mm.
talking. So, was that for you through an on-campus hiring process? Like, did you enter into that field? And if
Mhm.
someone is like, someone is from a university where such companies do not come,
Mhm.
so do they? How does one move into that
Got
segment?
it. Okay. Luckily for me, at BITS, we have this program called PS, a practice school, which is essentially an internship program that we have for 6 months or 1 year, basically,
Hmm.
depending on your degree. And thankfully, again, we had a lot of bulge bracket banks coming to us for roles. So based on your
Okay.
GPA, your past courses, and your grades, you get chosen essentially. So I did not have to interview, but the interview
Wow.
route is also it's basically the applying part is same as any other role. You
For
you will
sure.
have to go through 3 rounds of it, and mostly most of these quant jobs require you to have one of these backgrounds. Like if I was a pure circuit branch or maybe a chemical engineer, I would have to prove on my transcript that no, I've taken extra courses that are kind of relevant to this role.
Right.
Otherwise, getting into it becomes a bit difficult. If you have additional certifications like an FRM or maybe a CFA. CFA does not help always, but
Right.
these additional
Mm.
degrees or certifications also help you break through or get you like a entry into the interview at least. And
Right.
the interview process in itself will again be a very holistic process in the sense that you will have a lot of these probability questions in your interview, a lot of these statistics
Right.
questions, one or two coding rounds depending on how coding heavy your role is, and your general knowledge about the products, the assets, all of that.
Right. So, Naitik, when you talk about programming, right, are these like low-level programming? Because I'm assuming when you're talking about quant, it's got to be like really like kind of HFT, like high frequency stuff. So,
Got
is
it.
this low-level programming? Is it high-level programming? What kind of programming skill sets are required?
Correct. So again, depending on your role, it depends what program you'll be using. Like you mentioned, the low latency thing. So if you're working as a quant developer, wherein you need to make sure of these high frequency, you need to create these high frequency frameworks or trading portals for different companies, you will almost always be working with C++.
Mhm.
But if you are a quant trader, that essentially does not require a lot of coding. And even for some quant researcher roles, I think a generic Python works very, very well in the industry as of now. Sometimes you need to learn specialized languages like KDB or easy language. These are these very niche
Right.
languages that the company itself will provide you training because there are rarely any individuals that
Correct.
have
Makes
got that
sense.
training.
For
Or else
sure.
you might have gathered it in your previous experience and that kind of helps you in the hiring
Makes
process.
sense.
But in general, you will work between C++ or Python and nothing more than
That makes sense. That makes sense, Naitik. So, Naitik, how is computational finance different from financial engineering? Are they the same thing,
that.
just with different names? Or
Mhm. Yeah. So funny story about this is essentially with CMU's program, I believe it was the first financial engineering program to come up. So it came out in
wow.
1993.
Oh,
And at that
wow.
time, you had these computational finance PhDs. So they kind of derived that name from a PhD program to an MS. And then by the late 1990s, like around 99, when Berkeley Financial Engineering and then Cornell and all of them came up, they came up with the name of financial engineering. But in essence, all of them are essentially financial engineering, just with a different direction in each of them, whether you're more theoretical, more industrial, more computational. But the whole sector is financial engineering.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. So,
Yeah.
Naitik, what is your career aspiration? You seem almost talking like a Wall Street bro wearing the Patagonia vest. So, is that what you're planning on doing? What is it like for you?
Sure. I mean, kind of, yeah. So,
Very
um,
humble.
yeah. um, so a basic differentiation that most of us need to do while coming in is decide whether we want to work on the buy side or the sell side, which is essentially the buy side is your hedge funds, your prop shops, all of these firms,
Okay.
probably your HFTs, and sell side are your big investment banks. Majority of our roles are there. So the roles and the work environment differ significantly between these two sides.
Okay. Just to
Um,
confirm, when you say sell, are these companies that are shorting things? Or
um, no, not really. These are
okay.
companies that you are selling your products to or acting as a market maker.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it.
So like your IBs will have these HNIs that you're selling these products to. Whereas
Got
a
it.
buy side or a hedge fund is mainly involved in buying securities, making money, and then just reporting their profits to their investors. So you're not
Got it.
buying any securities for them. You're just giving
Right.
them
Right.
profit.
You're in selling kind of bundling. You're making products and like selling it to
Correct.
people. Got it.
Correct.
Interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah. So I very soon after coming here realized that the work environment and the type of work that I wanted to do was more aligned to the sell side. Your buy
Hmm.
side is a more startupish vibe where you're working, you're coding, you're very, very math oriented, and they're
Right.
like 12, 13, 14 hours of work days. Whereas on the sell side, it is a lot more corporate essentially. And of course, the hours will probably be similar for a lot of roles, but I wanted to be on that side of things. And particularly for me, like you have the quant researcher, the quant dev roles also in the sell side. But
Right.
I particularly want to work in the sales and trading domain. And
Got it.
like a long term goal would be to be a, a, a head of a desk or something at a sales and
Makes
trading
sense.
prop shop.
For sure. Right.
Yeah. And I personally enjoy this humanizing aspect of it. A lot of quants don't. So
Hmm.
that's why they kind of
Correct. Yeah.
steer
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
from the sales part or the people interaction part. They'd rather
Correct.
that I do my work. I enjoy doing my work in my own space and then just provide my results. But I want that kind of human, that client connection with me. So I want to work in the sales and trading aspect.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, Naitik, when you first went down this path of doing that internship, first
Hmm.
internship, at that
Hmm.
point, did you already know that this is what you want to do, or like was it like you wanted to just experiment it, or like did you have some prior hint that I like doing this stuff? What was that like?
Got it. So the story starts a bit earlier, like the end of my third year,
Hmm.
and that is when I decided that um, I wanted to kind of be a quant. Of course, I did not entirely know what all it entails.
For sure.
But to do that, I had to kind of repeat a few courses that I knew that I wanted to get a better understanding again. Like probability we had in our first year, which I treated as a joke and just got
Right.
by. So I
For
did
sure.
that again, tried to understand the real depths of what it actually meant.
Mm,
Same with C programming, then your OOPs and all of them. And then in my internship, although it was a quant role, it was more towards the risk side. And doing that, I realized the potential of this role, but also realizing that risk is not where I want to be because risk seemed a bit more timid, where you already have models developed and you're kind of working on them, at least at that time
got
in my role. So I
right.
wanted to be a lot more hands on, and I could not because I did not have the skill set for it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So essentially, that was my main reason to pursuing an education because I needed to. And even like when I used to read model documentations and all, it all used to go up, and I used to be like, "What am I even doing right now?"
Right.
It just felt like Greek at that point. But now it makes a lot more sense.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Naitik, just moving on now. Like, so when you were applying for your masters, right? So we clearly understand, like, you were talking about the
Mhm.
gap that was there between
Mhm.
what you think was like required versus what you knew through an undergrad. So that makes complete sense. So when you were applying for your masters, what kind of universities were you looking for? So I'm assuming it's
Mhm.
going to be purely in computational finance or in like financial engineering because literally they do the
Correct.
same thing. So what kind of universities were you looking at, and like what were your considerations? What were the thoughts running in your head?
Fair. I think one advice I got from my senior that really helped me decide my master's program was just look at the people that have graduated and see chart their courses in a 5 to 10 year period.
Mhm.
And that really resonated with me because I could see a pattern distinguished with each of them. Like for your Berkeley's, you usually had intakes that were more experienced, and they ended up eventually getting with portfolio management roles, and they were some of them were in fintech because of their West Coast proximity. Whereas your UChicago's, your CMU's, you could see a lot of quant researchers, quant traders going in there. So for me, I think I had like 3 or 4 parameters that I had like kind of created that this is what I want to look at. One, fortunately, unfortunately, brand name matters a lot in finance, where you are from, and especially on the sell side. Your buy side is still very limited to your skill set. You can be from any college. But at sell side, even if you're working with like front facing clients, it's a more of a prestige thing that, oh, my analyst is from Cornell, or oh, my analyst is from Columbia. So
Right.
the brand name did matter. Second most important thing for me was the syllabus, what all they're covering, how they're covering. The third thing was duration. I think like throughout these programs, you have a lot of varying durations. Your Berkeley is at 9 months, CMU is at 18, NYU Tandon is at 2 years. So I needed to kind of decide what is the time frame I'm willing to. Because essentially, if you think about the flip side of masters, is that it is an opportunity cost, and
Absolutely.
how you are kind of willing to balance that trade off. And yeah, and then you have these metrics that you generally check as a student, the placement stats, the career
For
opportunities,
sure.
the placement rates, and yeah, all of them kind of made me so my final battle was between choosing between Berkeley and CMU. And I think like pedigree and credibility wise, both of them are absolutely equal, if one not
Absolutely.
better than the other. The
Right.
only deciding factor for me, like the tipping factor, was that CMU was 16 months, Berkeley was 9. I felt 9 was way too short to cover the kind of information that they are expecting us to know. And also that Berkeley was the only program that started in the spring semester. So I had to wait an additional 7 months to get in here. I
Right.
was like, I'm not going to waste time and just get to it.
Absolutely. I mean, I can
Yeah.
completely understand, like, from an engineering perspective itself, like a
Mhm.
9 month course means I would be graduating like next month.
Yeah,
So it's really short. I cannot believe I started last September, August, and like it's
exactly.
already here. So
exactly.
time flies. I think I'm not sure if it's because we're here or we're doing so many things. So I think another thing, like Naitik and I were
Mhm.
talking about before the recording was how intense a master's program is. I've mentioned it a couple of times before, but I really want to stress on that. I had underestimated how much of
Oh, for
work it
sure.
is. But I mean, for Naitik, it's even probably more harder because it's like heavy quant and like heavy numbers. For us as programmers, it is hard, but it's probably not as hard. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours you have to put in.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, I mean, even after like warnings from our seniors, like I'd spoken to people that were not from CMU that told me that you're gonna get really, really burnt out very soon in CMU. And I did not really understand. I was like, nah, nah, I'll get through, I'll get through. And
Yeah,
which was
I'm different.
so wrong.
I think all of us have that issue. We're like, now we know what to expect.
Yeah,
We can like
yeah,
get through it.
correct, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I had people tell me that take a break, go on a vacation, relax before you come in. I was like, no, man, I'm gonna get into it. And then I realized, oh, I should have listened to them. Yeah, I needed that now. But
yeah.
yeah, I think I've realized like with everyone, like any master student I've spoken to, they severely underestimate the amount of work that goes in. And I'm not even talking about anything extra academic because that also plays in. You have your daily chores and then doing
Correct.
all of that. That is a whole different story. But
Absolutely,
the pure academia part of it really, really gets to you. And
absolutely,
but I think this is like peak character development also. I think the kind of work ethic you develop here it translates ahead in your career as well.
absolutely. That makes sense. That makes sense. You get to learn to balance all these things, which you would have not probably done in India. Like, I mean,
Correct.
you get to keep a cook, you get to keep a maid, and you get
Yeah.
all that comfort. But you're doing literally everything. So
True. True. I agree.
yeah.
I agree 100%.
So, Naitik, you were talking about deciding between Berkeley and
Mhm,
CMU, right? But what
mhm.
were your other? Where else did you apply, and what were your other options?
Okay. If I remember correctly, I think I'd applied to 8 universities. Um, CMU, Berkeley, UChicago, GeorgiaTech, UCLA, Cornell, Columbia, and NYU TAD.
Got it.
And ironically, Columbia was the only one I did not get it.
No
Uh,
way.
yeah. Columbia was the one that. So Columbia was again very notoriously known for us to have like peak grades in all of your subjects, and you had to have a high overall GPA as well.
I think that
Which,
is
yeah,
even for computer science, that is a
yeah,
resonating thing. They are very GPA centric, as they call it.
correct, correct,
Right.
correct. I think with most of the other programs, we had to kind of fill in on our own the subjects that were relevant to quant finance and
Oh,
provide those GPAs specifically, like a prop stats or a calc 1, calc 2,
right.
your econometrics. So they kind of wanted to just see uh, your grades in the courses that actually matter. But with Columbia, it was a much more broader view, and I think that's where I
Right.
kind of failed. And yeah, in the remaining seven I got. I think Cornell I was waitlisted initially and then got through.
Makes sense.
But
Makes
yeah,
sense.
these were the 8 programs. There is a rough metric on a website called QuantNet.
Awesome.
These are
Maybe
these
we can drop this in the description that people can check
definitely,
out.
definitely. And
Right.
I would not say that that is the holy grail for your ranking. It's definitely not.
Right.
But it does provide you like a rough outline of the universities you want to see. And they
Hmm.
have these kind of ranking discussion forums also where you get a much more holistic view. And if there are any aspiring quants here, they can definitely check that out because you get a lot of varying views from a lot of varying level of seniority. You have like admitted students, aspiring students, professionals that are alumni from them, and they kind of each give you the pros and cons of every university. So yeah, I think QuantNet was the starting place for me to kind of check what is the universe of uh, universities for me, and then based on my own kind of digging deep into it, talking to a lot of people on LinkedIn. Like I used to spend days and days just hitting people up and getting and picking on the replies from whoever I've got and just asking mad questions. What is this? What is this? How does this translate into that? And all of that. So I think asking essentially gets you the furthest. And
100%. Like
like,
I've stressed
yeah,
this on multiple episodes. Like even when you're applying, right? Before applying, spending that $100, $120,
correct,
selling your GRE score and your application
correct,
and putting the effort for the SOP. first understand the program, and the only way you can do that, the website is not comprehensive, right? And
Definitely.
website might say something, the course might be something else. Like,
Correct.
talk to folks and like understand. And obviously, not everyone on LinkedIn is going to reply, right? But you
Exactly.
do your effort. Like in 10 people, maybe three or
Uh,
four might reply, but it's still better than having no knowledge at all.
agreed
So
100%. Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So, I think you were talking about like Berkeley being 9 months and CMU being 16
Mhm.
months. So, what was your decision between CMU? Like, why did you pick CMU over Cornell and over, the other universities you had? Was it like you were mentioning also that some universities are specific in certain areas and things
Mhm.
like that?
Mhm.
Better. So, what was that like for
Correct. Like a distinct example of this would be, and people all over the industry talk about this, but I cannot speak with certainty because I don't know NYU Quran's actual learnings. But like a common example theme is NYU Quran is a very theoretical course. They go into a lot of theory and a lot of depth, whereas Cornell, UChicago, and CMU, and in fact Berkeley are known for a lot more industrial side of things, where
you?
it's how
Application.
yeah application. They kind of put a lot of importance onto the fact that how does this translate into the industry and how you can leverage the most out of this theory in the industry. So I think that distinction was right there off the bat. For me, eventual career opportunities like the growth pattern I was talking to you about, that mattered a lot for me. So I used to kind of map these charts
Right.
and see that where people are ending up and if that is aligning with what I'm envisioning myself as. So that kind of again eliminated a few colleges for me. Syllabus was a huge thing because with certain programs, I did not agree with their course structure at all. Like
Right.
it just seemed too haphazard for me. It wasn't structured enough. With CMU, an additional benefit that I personally loved was even before the program started, they had this 1 month almost primer course where they kind
Wow.
of reviewed everything, like your probability prep, your programming prep, math prep. Because I needed that. I was working for like almost 2 years and I was really a bit out of touch with like pure calculus and pure stats and
For
all of that.
sure.
So I needed that. What else? Of course, I'll be lying if I said that I did not look at the placement stats because
No, that's for sure.
obvious,
I mean,
yeah,
you have to do that, right? As an international student,
correct,
without a H1B, 3 years is the extension you get. So you've got to make the
exactly.
most out of those 3 years.
Exactly. And on the other side, the flip side also was the fees factor.
Hmm.
Um, that was a tough decision because in general, these financial engineering programs are pretty expensive. So finding that opportunity cost there was also a significant thing for me. And then, thankfully, luckily for me, I had a lot of bit seniors who were in multiple of these programs. So
Hmm.
then talking to them, they were like, you kind of undervalue sometimes how an individual can also speak ill about their institution and kind of praise someone else's because they're giving you a very honest review. Otherwise, like
Correct.
people
And
don't really
grass
do
always
that.
greener on the other side, right? So
True.
you would say that, technically that university is this way, but
Yeah.
we're suffering here kind of
Yeah.
thing. I think,
Exactly.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So taking into these considerations, I think CMU aligned best with me. And CMU students and the way CMU admission staff also handled their stuff, like the career services. Um, we had our resumes ready by the end of June, I want to say.
Hmm.
So they were very proactive with that. And we had this over the summer, we had a boot camp also for people that needed it. So all of these things, maybe very small things, but they kind of um, put out the idea there that they're caring a lot about what you want to do, how you want to progress. They were very hands on with it. And yeah, and again, I had heard the notion that they are going to give you a lot of information. And if you can handle it, you're going to make the best out of it.
For sure.
And at that time, it was my thinking that, yeah, maybe I could leverage that the most.
Absolutely. So, Naitik, what kind of course structure does the program at CMU have?
Mhm.
So, so it's like you said, 16 months, so it's 3 semesters, I'm assuming.
Correct. Correct.
So, what kind of courses do you do? Are there specializations within that as well? What is that
Hmm. Okay. So the biggest distinction that I found here was you don't technically have a semester long course for MSCF, particularly. You instead have mini courses, which is basically two minis make up a semester.
like? Got
So
it.
every 6 weeks, you have um, approximately 4 to 5 courses changing. So within a semester, you kind of complete about 8 to 9 courses, which I felt was insane because 8 to 9 courses and then 3 semesters again.
Right, that's
And
like 25.
exactly. But one very beautiful thing about MSCF is that in the first year you're not allowed to take any elective. And why? And they sold it also very beautifully by saying the fact that when you come out after your first year for your internship, because we've been here this long and our course structure has been this way, industry practitioners or the industry knows that these students come with this skill set for sure. It's not going to be like, oh, I don't know stochastic calculus because I did not take that elective. That is already there. So the first year, there is no flexibility whatsoever in choosing your courses. You will be given the same education as any other MSCF grad. So the industry knows that this is the skill set you will for sure have. The second year, the half year that we have, there we have some flexibility where most of the times you have 2 or 3 compulsory courses and then 2 optional or 3 optional. And yeah, in terms of specializations, it is a good progression. They start with the prep courses, like I mentioned before the semester starts. Like you have your markets prep, programming prep, math prep, and probability. So you have these 4 prep courses. Then they build on that. You have your financial computing 1. Then the next mini you'll have financial computing 2, 3, 4. Same with financial data science 1, 2, 3, 4. So they've made this course structure with a lot of thinking. And what I also appreciate about this program is that they keep on changing it. Like no 2 years will have the same course material, unlike
Wow.
undergrad. Like undergrad, what probably my 4th years had, I'm gonna probably be studying the same thing.
I think that's an
Um,
understatement, right? It's even longer. I think the
yeah,
books are like
exactly,
20 years old, 30 years old.
exactly. But here, so they get active feedback from us as well and from the industry, saying
Hmm.
that, oh, maybe this is outdated. You don't even need this anymore. Try teaching them this instead. So that kind of rotation with the newity of the syllabus also kind of helps.
Absolutely, that's amazing. So,
Yeah,
Naitik, what kind of courses? So you're mentioning financial, data science, and like Calc 1,
computing.
Calc 2. So,
Yeah.
my question is usually when you have these small courses, right? Do you get the depth that is actually required that you think is, or is it like you reach the depth that is sufficient for you to like enter the industry? What is
Mhm.
that like?
Yeah, I think um it's somewhere between the second thing that you said, that it's you definitely have a broad overview of everything, that's for sure. And the most relevant thing out of it that you will probably most probably need in your industry experience, that has gone into real depth. Of course, but the flip side of this is they cover this much and it's a very short span of time. So you need to spend a lot of time on your own trying to digest that information, build on that.
Correct.
CMU is a very assignment heavy, homework heavy program. So although we have like classes only 4 days a week, but then you will have assignments that will take up the entirety of your remaining day. So they kind of it provides you the framework, and then it is almost dependent on yourself how much in depth you are willing to go in that subject, how much you're willing to kind of invest your time and brain into it. But yeah, it's a broad thing with generalized and then 1 or 2 very in-depth focuses.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I think it's a good point you brought out that, it's just 4 days of classes. So I
Yeah.
remember, when I was talking to my seniors, I was like, so we have usually each course like 2.5 hours for us, and we've got
Hmm.
4 courses a semester. So it's like 10 hours. So it's like,
Yeah.
see, you've got 160, you've
Yeah.
got like what, 168 hours in a week. You're talking about 10 hours of classes, and boy,
I'm living, yeah, but they really mess you
yeah,
up.
I think
Yeah.
you do like 40, 50, 60 hours of just assignments, homeworks, and projects,
Fair.
and the classes
True.
are like literally. So I think that's I felt like one difference between the Indian and the American education system, right? Or probably just the
Yeah.
Western education system.
Hmm.
That in India, whatever is in the book, it's everything's in the book basically. There's not
Correct.
much you need to know
Correct.
outside. But here, the
Correct.
classes are just like a primer. They'll just talk about the topic, and your project and your assignment, you have to go in depth and like learn it by
Correct.
yourself.
Correct. I agree 100%. Like you cannot just attend class and do your assignment. You need to really digest your class and understand
Correct.
the real theory of it to even make some sense of the homeworks or the assignments that you're going to do. But yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
So,
also, and to add to the previous topic, I think another thing that people kind of sometimes discount, like students discount while choosing an program, is the quality of faculty. and I know it might seem a very harsh thing for me to say, but it does matter. The quality of
I
professors
don't
that
see
you,
why it should not. 100%
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
should.
I mean, I could be mean and say, no, that professor. I mean, he is PhD, he's done this, but still, there is going to be levels to this, and
Absolutely.
with quants, at least in this industry, this kind of name matters a lot. Like, for example, I think with everyone in the quant space right now, or in quant finance right now, knows about Steve Shreve, who's like, he has the most famous book for stochastic calculus around that most of the colleges use as the textbook reference. And he was the one who himself taught us Stocal too.
Wow.
So yeah, so these small things kind of again pushed me more towards CMU.
Makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes sense. So I think
Yeah.
another thing I was noticing was the MSCF program is part of the Tepper School of Business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is this a trend across different universities? Like, are they typically in the business school or are they a mix of like either engineering, some engineering, some
Mm.
business? What is that like?
Okay. So this is kind of like um see, again, MSCF is registered under Tepper, under the business school, but it is again like an amalgamation of different schools. So we
Hmm.
have probably one professor every course from the Tepper School of Business, but otherwise we have teachers from your data science, Heinz, SCS, and it's so that's why they sell MSCF as an interdisciplinary program.
Got
There
it.
is no just because we had to be registered under one school, we were
Step.
registered under Tepper. But
Got it.
there is absolutely, in my opinion, not a lot of linking between us and the B school side of things. It's just that
Got it.
we are under them, but everything else is interdisciplinary, and based on the specialization of that course, we get a professor from that school.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I
So
think that's what happens with I think majority of them. I think even with like UChicago, it comes under Booth, but again, they do have professors. I'm sure they must have. I mean, again, I don't know in detail, but they must have professors outside of Booth also coming to teach them the math and the stats of things.
absolutely, that makes sense. The business school will probably not have house the best computer
Correct.
programming people, so you would
Correct.
need them to come from outside. So it
Exactly.
does make
Exactly.
sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So Naitik, what kind of students typically get into the MSCF program? So what kind of,
hmm
first of all, in
hmm
your program, what is the diversity? Like how many Indians? I'm assuming Asians are also a very huge bunch in the finance
Definitely.
space, right? So what is
Definitely.
that like? What are the backgrounds? How many years of experience? Are they all engineering folks, or are they like people
Mhm.
come from economics and stuff also? Like what is that like?
Got it. So as of now, our class size is about 98, I want to say. It usually fluctuates between 95 and 100, and where 50% of the class is in Pittsburgh in the main campus, and 50% of them are in New York in the Wall Street. So okay. With
Oh,
MSCF, yeah, we have two branches essentially, but
okay.
both are taught at the same time via. So we have an interactive class, essentially like a video interactive class. So half of the class is here in Pittsburgh, and half is on Wall Street right now, like near Wall Street. And in terms of the demographic, I think we are 3, 5, and in the entire program we are 7 Indians, like 7 Indian
Wow. Okay, it's one
citizens.
of the most diverse
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
programs I've heard of.
yeah.
Okay.
And I would like to say, like on a limb, almost 95% of the remaining are students from China or
Wow.
Chinese surrounding countries, and we
Right.
have a lucky few from Mexico, France, and then United States also.
Got
So yeah,
it.
in terms of diversity, it is not the most diverse.
For
It
sure.
is very, very, very Asian oriented,
Makes sense.
including
Makes
us.
sense.
And in terms of work X, I've realized that there's a certain disparity. Like with the Indians, each and every Indian that is here, it has work X, and approximately the same range between 1 and 3 years. Whereas with the other Asians, we have a lot of students that have come right off the bat from their undergrad. And and in terms of background, I think around 60 to 70% of the class is from a math background. Like they've either had a major or a double major in math at some point. Some of them have had financial engineering undergrads.
Mm.
A lot of them are from CS undergrads. We have kids from finance undergrads and one or two from economics. And then we have people like me, like 2, 3 who are from triple E background.
Right.
But yeah, so again, it's again almost the entire class is from either math, finance, or CS. Nothing
Got it.
outside, like, very rarely outside that. And getting into a course like this without those backgrounds, I think is tough in itself.
For sure.
Unless
Yeah.
you,
I mean, they cannot promote diversity in that
yeah,
because then the student would really bear the brunt of it.
correct. And
Right.
this is where I think again with CMU and Berkeley the difference came in that the CMU average class size was a lot class age was a lot younger than Berkeley's age. So Berkeley had more experienced individuals coming in already. That's why if on the surface if you notice the placement stats, Berkeley is at a higher placement than CMU, but then you have to kind
Naturally.
of account
Right.
that they
Correct.
have that
Correct.
much work experience with them as well. So this is another thing
Absolutely.
that students kind of miss out on. Like they see, oh, A has higher placements than B, but you also need to understand like the work experience rates of both of these colleges and where you account for that. Do you want to be at the lower quartile of that class with your work ex and age, or do you want to kind of be in the middle of that? So that was also a important deciding factor for me between MSCF and Berkeley.
Absolutely. I think this is a great point you bring out for someone who's just like looking at the placement stats and saying,
Yeah,
you know what, I can make 30, 40% higher just by going to Berkeley. It's
correct.
not that simple. They have more experience, so naturally,
Exactly.
they get paid higher. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
super helpful.
Yeah.
So, Naitik, coming to the possible career paths, you've been talking about quantitative analyst, quantitative
Mm-hmm.
trader, quantitative researcher, but are there
Mm-hmm.
anything else also that people from MSCF or financial engineering kind of get into? Like maybe some
Got it.
like credit risk or like I'm just imagining, I'm just speaking out
Yeah,
loud,
yeah,
So
fair,
what kind of stuff do people get into?
fair. Um, so yeah, one thing before like I always tell like even if like incoming students ask me or they're thinking about financial engineering, I always tell them that the exit opportunities from here are very niche. They're not a lot. Like a CS grad, like a MSCS could very well end up in a quant firm doing quant work.
Correct,
One guy cannot end up in a CS firm doing software and all that. We have the
correct.
skills for it. So that's why it's very important, like you said, to understand what your exit opportunities or your career opportunities are. Broadly, I think so. You have your quant researchers, you have your sales and traders, in within which you have your quant traders, flow traders, and all of those different types of traders. You have these strats guys, strats and modeling, who are your strategists or quant modeling guys. You have portfolio management then, which comes in usually with a lot more experienced background because you need to have that kind of industry experience to kind of essentially manage a portfolio. But you can very well enter as a portfolio management analyst or something like that. Then you come to risk management, which in itself is a different ball game. And I think with a lot of financial engineers, they also do rather migrate to fintech. So that involves a lot of data science roles. So that is an exit opportunity also there. And finally, I think quantitative development comes in, which for students that are very, very confident with their coding abilities, their CS abilities, their architecture, their OOPs and all of that. So I think it's a small circle, very niche circle, but everything would be in one of these brackets, depending like you have different structures in different banks or different hedge funds, which would need you to work in two or three of these arms simultaneously. Like in a hedge fund, you may have to, or a prop shop, you may have to work as a researcher, carry out probably some trades, or as a researcher and do some development, or work out strategies and research. So more than often, you will be working with two or three arms of this, but the broad structuring is along these lines.
Absolutely, that is a lot of breadth and like in what you're saying. And for me, as like someone from computer science who's never explored this field but I've heard of
Yeah.
it, I think I am learning a lot through all of this. That's
Correct.
awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, so for CS kids also, I think quant could be a very solid opportunity. At least I've noticed with CMU undergrad students, almost, I wouldn't want to put a number on it, but a lot of students end up in these prop shops. And most of these hedge funds also have like requirements for core CS roles or software engineers. So if there are any students here who are software or CS majors and are looking to enter into quant space, it is a good opportunity. If you're willing to work those many hours and really, really put yourself out there, I think it's a good opportunity.
Absolutely. I think, even at Columbia, like we have these poker tournaments that are sponsored by all these
Correct.
HFTs and all
Yeah,
these
Jane
hedge
Street and all of
funds.
them. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
So you have a lot of these undergrad kids and even a lot of masters kids. So we have financial engineer, we have operations research. So
correct,
and a lot of computer science and data science folks also go there and participate and get these
correct.
roles. I know a couple of people within the
Yeah.
CS school here also who are getting into them, and I can tell you that the pay is fantastic. So
Yeah,
regardless of how many hours you're working, so for someone who's ready to work, they're going to pay you to
exactly,
get to work
exactly,
that
exactly.
much.
Getting
Right.
into it is tough, but I think it's worth it if you have that kind of coding credibility to yourself.
Correct.
Getting into these roles is like you do not have to worry about your finances down the line.
Absolutely. And you're doing finance, don't worry about your own
Yeah,
finances. Like
yeah,
that is taken care of.
yeah. But yeah.
Right. So, I think one thing you were mentioning earlier was it's an expensive program, right? So,
Mm,
what is expensive? How expensive is it, and how is that? And
correct.
how are you funding it, and what is that like?
Okay. So I think the tuition itself for 1.5 years was around $98,000. So it was hefty there. And then adding your insurance and all of that, I think it covers almost around 98. And so that's why it kind of like I also wanted to for some time be at the New York branch, but then you have to accommodate the fact that New York cost of living in New York is significantly higher than Pittsburgh. So I had to
Absolutely.
make that trade-off here. Coming from a financing point of view, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship here. It's called a distinguished scholarship, but sure, that's the name that they give. So I got a $15,000 scholarship here.
Fantastic.
Um, I got in India, I got a KC Mahindra scholarship as well. I think that was about 5 lakhs INR, which is 500,000 from India,
Right.
500,000 INR. And there was this community scholarship also. Like I think this is a very underutilized area with Indian students, I think particularly, or might be with the Asian students in general. You will, if you look hard and well, find these community scholarships.
Interesting.
And this kind of like funded by your own broad religion or community. And they have these programs to promote their own students. And I believe that almost every culture or community in India has one or two of them. The amounts may vary, but if you look hard and fast, you will find some of these. So from like I am a Gujarati essentially. So from my that community, I think I got a 15 lakh scholarship as well.
So, what was that
So
scholarship called? If you can, probably someone who's watching in Gujarat, they can probably apply for it as well.
I could not remember the
No
name of the
worries, no
band,
worries.
but
You can
I'll
probably
let
drop
you
it
know
down.
and
Yeah,
then you'll
for
put
sure.
it. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
It is a pretty Gujarati name, and I can't really remember it.
For sure. No worries, no worries.
Yeah,
So, you were
and
talking about
the remaining
sorry.
of it, yeah, sorry. And the remaining of it, like I did not want to, like I of course I had some savings for my work time, but I wanted to mm, majorly take this endeavor upon my own self. So the remaining funding was done by loans. And luckily, if you end up in one of these kind of tier one colleges, you get a lot of banking benefits also. And this is where I think underratedly your GRE and your TOEFLs also help, kind of,
Okay.
because when I was applying for my banking loans, they asked me my college and then they classified that as tier one. And then they had these parameters. And I asked him in detail after the whole process was done, why did you ask me? So he was like, we have interest rates also based on different GRE scores that kind of
No way. This is
yes,
new. I have not heard of this.
yes. So like how you have a credit score to check your credit capability or your credit credibility. Similarly, they consider your academic scores or your GREs as a source of credibility or your credit score so that you
Wow.
can, what is your probability of not defaulting on this loan? So because of my GRE score and my college, my interest rate was dropped by 0.5% there.
That is significant.
Yeah. So people a lot of times discount GRE and all. I think these are these small niche places where this
Yeah, guys,
plays.
if you're watching this, GRE is very
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
It
yeah,
can
yeah,
save
yeah.
you
Do it.
potentially lakhs of rupees.
It can.
Yeah,
Do it. So yeah.
absolutely.
So I funded my remaining education with the loan.
Right.
And also I'm kind of, it was a bold move on my end, but I kind of envision that whatever some amount, if I can save from my summer internship, I then kind of utilize that in the third semester.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Naitik, talking about the scholarships again. So
Mhm.
you're talking about the distinguished student scholarship that you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
received. So, is that how common is that among students who get into CMU to get for the
Hmm.
MSCF program? And like,
Hmm.
if you can just share some insight
Yeah.
about that.
Um, from what I know, I think there is a fair 20 to 30% of students here that have got that scholarship. And
Got
there
it.
is another scholarship that they provide, but I've not seen any Indian get it as of now,
Mhm.
nor not that I know that any other Asian. It's more towards the American citizens. They
Okay.
have another scholarship which is approximately funding them about I think 40 to 50% of their cost, which is a
Oh
very
wow.
huge amount.
Absolutely. Very
So yeah,
generous.
you
Yeah.
have these two major scholarships coming in from here.
Hmm.
In general, with CMU, I have not seen too many scholarships like across all the programs. It's since it is a private school and all, the number of scholarships are lower, although you would imagine that with the donor list it should be higher. But I haven't seen that many common scholarships around here.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Makes sense.
And for
Uh,
our Indian audience, probably, if you're looking for scholarships, definitely apply to JN Tata, KC Mahindra. Um, I think there are a few more lists which you can easily find on Google, and do this early. I would suggest, because when I started looking for these scholarships, I think two or three of them had already, like, the deadlines had exhausted, so I could not utilize that. So even when you've started applying, go through this list, mention these deadlines, because they also have application forms and essays and work to do. So yeah.
Absolutely. So, Naitik, I just wanted to get a little bit more insight on this, the KC Mahindra, I think, scholarship you're
Hmm.
talking about.
Hmm.
So, that is something a lot of people have not, I mean, almost no one has spoken about so far in the podcast,
Hmm.
and that's interesting to me as well because I don't know a
Hmm.
lot about it. So,
Hmm.
so I've heard a few scholarships you apply for even before you get your admit. So, is
Hmm.
this one of those things that where you first, you parallelly apply for both of them? And
Hmm.
should you get the offer, the scholarship is valid? What kind of
Hmm.
thing is this?
Okay. No, with KC Mahindra, it was a post offer thing, because they needed your college to be written. Like, you had to submit your offer letter, your admit offer letter to them as a scholarship, to even be considered for a scholarship. And with KC Mahindra, it was more on the so-called prestigious university side. Like, when I'd gone in for my interview, I felt as if I was the one most out of place, because there were Harvards and Oxfords and LSBs, LSEs, Columbias, Cornells. So yeah, but then again with them, it was a very holistic process. Like, it was much more intimidating getting it, like, imagining about it, than it actually was. And I'd say that a lot of people do not put in the effort for a scholarship as much as they'd put in an application. Because you also kind of, like, you also know this, that you kind of get burned out by the end of it, of writing essays.
For sure.
You've written multiple iterations of multiple essays, and then you're like, oh, I can't be asked anymore with more work. But the payout is there. Like, this is just like
Absolutely.
one last push you get in. And I made a really good network of people there as well. Like, I was meeting these students that were kind of really heading well, like, almost they were the top of their class already, and now they're getting into these prestigious universities. So I think the scholarship events are also hella important, because they kind of connect you with these people, and you kind of learn about their mindsets and understand where each person is coming from, so that it helps that way also.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know this is fantastic. Like this is, I think, a lot of viewers would find very, very useful. Uh, so I think, I think when you're talking about the CMU's process that starts beforehand itself, like before you
Hmm.
enter the university itself,
Hmm.
like, I think one thing I've noticed or have heard of is that usually finance hiring cycles are very different from tech hiring cycles.
Correct.
Like tech
Correct.
usually starts like in the new year, January, Feb, March is when
Correct.
they peak, but finance is like September, October, November. That's when they're hiring. Is that
Yeah.
true? And like, how did your internship search go, and what was that?
Definitely true. And for quant finance, I'd say even a bit earlier. So I remember before me, like, in the May of 23, yeah, May of 23, when we were told about this, like, what internships are, what funds are, there were already hedge funds that had opened their internship openings in Jan of 23 for summer of 24.
Wow.
So these guys have a completely different cycle, and I think this is where MSCF leverages the most, because they kind of push you right off the bat. Once you get your admit, within a month they start with your resume handbook. They give you these resources to start. We almost everyone here had started kind of at least applying by July end, and we
Got it.
had we had like not significant but multiple offers by the end of October. Like by end of October, I think we had, I want to say, around 20% offers, like 10 between 10 and 20% offers. And like you mentioned, a lot of the tech comes in later in the new year.
Later,
We
right.
kind of like our majority openings with the sell side and the buy side have already opened definitely, and most of them are in processes. Um, and I think even when students, like if there are any students, current students watching, this is like like when I used to talk to my friends, probably they used to be like, "Oh no, you already have an internship, or you're already interviewing and all." They fail to understand that there are different cycles, like you correctly mentioned. A lot of people don't realize that tech will start later. So you comparing with the finance kid that, oh my god, he already has an interview or an internship, it kind of demotivates you significantly, and that
Absolutely.
that does play on your mind. So understanding your cycle, taking your pace, being a bit early to get that alpha, that edge is important.
Right. I think, I was seeing a meme on Instagram, I
Hmm.
think Wall Street Bros or whatever
Hmm.
the Instagram
Yeah,
page is called. So they're already
yeah,
hiring for 2025.
yeah. Yes,
2025 or 2026, the investment
yes,
bank things are open. So
yes,
I can
yes.
understand that, finance is on a completely different
Correct.
timeline or scale or whatever
Exactly, exactly.
they operate on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And
So,
and that gets tricky for master students, because you're just learning about the subjects after coming in. Like it happened with me also. Like my first few interviews, they asked me things that I was yet to learn. Like I was going to learn in my probably second semester. And it
right,
felt almost kind of out of place. Like, what am I doing here? Why are you asking me this? I don't know anything about this.
right,
But these were golden opportunities that I missed out. So that is why with these programs, having that kind of edge, starting a bit on your own earlier goes a really long way. Because like in July or August, people like me who are underprepared is much higher than the few that actually know their stuff at that point. So if you get that alpha there, you get a better job in a much lesser competitive environment, in my opinion.
right. Makes sense. So, and I think just to understand, right, how finance typically works. So,
Hmm.
are more students getting internships through CMU's career placement, like from that angle,
Hmm.
or are people applying outside? Like, for example, like Columbia's MSCS,
Hmm.
majority of students get it outside.
Got it.
So, what is that like in the finance space?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Finance, I would not be able to comment, but with MSCF, I think it's a 60-40 or 65-35 mix essentially. Where we have these, it's called a resume book shortlist. You have these like they create a resume book with our names, and our career services puts it out to different employers and employees.
Mhm.
And if you get, and they don't usually host events or something based on your resumes and their fit. They will call out individuals to come and interview with them, but you can't solely rely on that.
Makes sense.
It'll be almost stupid to do that. So you
Makes
kind of
sense.
have to parallelly do your own thing, and almost every student has done that. And you treat the resume book shortlist as an added bonus. You can't rely on that. You have to keep
Absolutely.
your primary aim on the
Correct.
self.
It's not like in India where just because
No,
you're
no, no.
graduating from a top school, a top program, they come and
Yeah,
pick you. You
yeah,
have to
no.
do the hard work.
Yeah,
Right.
no one's coming over and saying, "Oh, yeah, come on, we'll take you in."
Yeah.
Come on, you're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get to where you
Correct. I
want
think
to be.
that's the first thing a lot of students who come into the US should understand. This is not India because you're from IIT, you're from
Yeah,
NIT, you're from a
yeah,
BITS. They're going to come and welcome you saying, you're
no, for
amazing. We're going
sure.
to pay you to come.
Nah, nah,
Right.
nah. The roles are really reversed, and we don't
Absolutely.
understand how privileged we were in India with the career or the placement services, where they used to have these lists and lists of companies coming to
Correct.
you, and
You didn't
you
get
you
today, don't
interviewing with
worry.
7, 8.
Tomorrow
Yeah,
there's one, day after tomorrow there's one.
exactly,
Next 10 days we've got companies. You still didn't get it, don't worry. 20 more companies are lined up.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen like that,
correct.
and I think like this is something I personally would like to stress a lot, is kind of holding your mental health during this internship or the internship hunting process, because I've seen people struggle like with this, and it gets overwhelming when you have this much course load. You're away from home. You have to do everything on your own, and you see people around you kind of getting these internships. Handling that kind of a thing emotionally is tough, but give it time, give it a due course, and you will get through it. I think
I
that's a
think
very important thing everyone needs to keep in mind while going through this.
I think absolutely that's very good you pointed that out, Naitik. So
Yeah,
even people around right now, they're struggling to find internships. Like the
correct.
market is not great this year, right? So
Yeah.
it's very easy to get burnt out or overwhelmed or like, disappointed in yourself, but
Hmm.
understand that, people should understand
Yeah,
it's not them. It's the market that's bad. Like they're
correct.
because I know really fantastic people who still do not have internships.
Exactly.
But on the other side, you also have people who you do not think are that fantastic, but still have really good internships, right? So
Correct.
it's you've got
Correct.
to give it some time. Like when the
Yeah,
market opens up, everyone will find the right place. So that makes a
definitely.
lot of sense. And in
Definitely. And
addition to
also,
that,
yeah, sorry,
yeah. So
continue.
no, please, please, please.
Oh, yeah. I think people also almost always associate um their academic credibility or their smartness or intelligence to getting an internship, which is not true in my opinion. Like I would go as far as saying that almost 65-70% of your internship hunt is luck. How
Oh,
you
I
perform
don't
on
think
that day.
so. I think it should be 90%.
Fair, fair, fair,
Because
fair.
the way it works in CS, right? So
Yeah,
the first step is you submit your resume. You're submitting your resume. I applied to 600 internships before I got an internship. All right.
correct.
So you apply. Now, no one knows what they're looking at. All the companies are like looking at different factors. Someone look at your visa status. Someone look at how much
Exactly.
years of experience you have. Someone look at
Correct.
what tech stack you worked on. And you just don't know why you're getting rejected or why people are not reaching out.
Agreed.
It's such an opaque system.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where we refuse to think of the other side. We just like, oh, because I'm not smarter than my peer, that's why I'm getting rejected. Even when you are interviewing, you may if I've studied X and you've studied Y, and if they are going to ask why, I
You
get it
can't do.
that
There's
both of
nothing
us
you can
should
do
have
about
studied
it.
X plus Y, but it's okay. There is a luck factor, but just don't always associate your intelligence to you getting an internship because that is never the case. Like you mentioned, like
Absolutely.
the fantastic people, very intelligent that have probably not got an internship.
Correct.
So it does not really, that correlation does not stand.
Right. I think, another important thing like I've come to understand is for companies, it doesn't matter so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're like at the 100th percentile or you're
Yeah,
like at the 80th percentile or even the 75th percentile, they have to
yeah,
train you on the job. Like at least for
correct.
computer science, like you will learn, yes, at university, but what you learn on the job is very different. And they feel that if you have the brains to like, do decently well at academics, you can pick up the job and you can do
Correct,
decently well
correct,
at work.
correct. Like I've
So
realized also that a parameter that they do test you on is how well you pick up on information that is provided to you then, because it is natural for them also to understand that you're not coming with 100% skill set like you mentioned, but an important parameter for them which makes sense is, if I teach you this, how well can you grasp this and use this, because that is where the actual plane comes in. Like I've had interviews where I've told them that I do not know this topic, but then they would be patient enough, like some of the good firms would be patient enough, teach me that, and then quiz me on that immediately.
right.
So that kind of level, that having that kind of presence in an interview also, I think is pretty important.
Absolutely. I think that makes sense, right? So if you do not know something, they're able to teach you that and you're able to grasp, especially in
Hmm.
your industry where you've got to be so quick, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. For us, we still have time, right? We can like relax and say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it here. But for you guys, you've got to do it on the spot. So you need to be like really fast learner. So it makes sense naturally
Yeah.
that they do that. That makes sense. So Naitik, I think, this is a long episode. So I don't want
Yeah,
to even drag it longer for people who are watching
I
it.
get it. I get
So,
it.
any final thoughts you want to share with those who are applying, number one, for these
Hmm.
MSCF or MS Financial Engineer
Hmm.
programs, and number
Hmm.
two, for those who have gotten their admits and like it's the month of April, so they've got two,
Hmm.
3 months before the start. You were mentioning about already preparing beforehand because the cycles start much earlier. So
Correct.
what are the tips do you think?
Fair. For the people that are considering admissions, I would say definitely talk to as many people as you can, and but then don't always base your opinion on them. Create your own opinion. Gather information and then create your opinion based on what is most like fathomable to you. You don't want to kind of replicate what I am thinking because I think very differently from what you're thinking. Get as much information as you can and then create your own decision. I think that is the fundamental thing for any MSCF or any program also in general, I believe is true. And for particularly for MFE students that are coming in this fall, take your time, enjoy your life, to a certain extent while you have that, but be proactive, talk to your immediate seniors and ask them what helped them the most in their interview processes. If I had to spit out a book right now, it would be Green Book. I think anyone in the financial engineering or the quant side of things knows what I'm talking about. And if you don't, even if you just search the word Green Book financial engineering, it will pop up the first thing on Google. Try to go through that primer, take your time with it, try to digest it, understand it, and then I think you'd be in a good space to then start studying about it. But yeah,
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks a lot, Naitik. So, Naitik, just before we wrap up, one final question. Would you be comfortable sharing your GPA, GRE, and TOEFL scores? So just so that your students
sure,
know what
sure.
to kind of expect.
Yeah. And in fact, I do this all the time because I was not the best performing student in my university, so I'll happily do this. In my undergrad, I had a 8.05 on 10, I think GPA. With GRE, I had a full and quant because that was almost necessary for me,
For sure.
and a 159 or 160 in verbal,
So 329
and
to 330 on
yeah,
340-ish.
yeah, around that range.
Makes sense.
And with TOEFL, I think I was at 113 on one.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Cool.
yeah.
I think, Naitik, I don't know about others who are watching this, but personally, I have learned a lot of new things through this, like, domains that I had no clue. I'm sure those who are aspiring to, even enter the finance space, regardless of a master's, they watch this, they will definitely learn a lot. So,
I hope so. And if they have any doubts, please feel free to reach out to Harshith or me, and we'd actually
absolutely.
help.
I'm going to drop your LinkedIn URL in the
Got it. Thank you.
description and people can reach out.
Yeah,
Cool. So that brings us towards the end of this episode. Thank you everyone for watching. If you still have not subscribed, please do hit the subscribe button and we'll see you in the future episodes.
yeah.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.